welcome to the It Doesn't Hold Up podcast. We review and reevaluate all things we remember fondly from our childhood and years prior to see if they still hold up. And more often than not, they probably don't. I'm Stuart Shepherd, along with my co-host and good friend, Michael Smith. Smith, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Stu. How are you?
I am fantastic. It's spooky season, and I'm looking forward to this week's nomination.
I'm wearing my autumnal shirt.
I love it. I'm wearing my spooky pumpkin t-shirt. If you're watching along on YouTube, you won't be able to see it on audio, obviously.
And you can imagine it. It's like spooky pumpkin.
Ooh. Now, before we get going, I have to ask, how was America? And did you cause mischief just like Mr. Bean?
I did. I actively went out of my way to find a copy of Whistler's Mother and deface it.
As you would.
I am no longer welcome in 3 states.
Okay.
No, America was great fun. Actually, there's a little bit of a tie into this week's episode as well, which I'll come back to later. But it's visiting the House of Mouse itself, and all that Disneyland has to offer is something that if you haven't, I would strongly recommend you do.
Righto. Cool. Well, while we're on the subject of Mr. Bean, before we get on to this episode's nomination, I just want to talk about the feedback we received. So, we actually received some feedback about the scene setting, believe it or not. So, apparently, a key event we missed out from 1997 was the Montreal Screwjob. So those who are listening, yeah.
You know what? That is something I think about legitimately at least 3 times a week. So
there you go. As for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, the Montreal Screwjob was an incident that happened in World Wrestling Federation or World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE. So Smith and I are long-time wrestling fans, and eventually we will cover wrestling-related topic on this podcast. But a planned finish to a match was supposed to go one way, and let's just say it didn't go that way. And there was huge controversy, and it's still spoken about to this day, well over 25 years later.
Some would argue too much.
Indeed, yes. And I must say, our Mr. Bean episode has been the most watched video on YouTube. For some reason, it was ridiculously popular. So it just goes to show you, even in this day and age, there are still Mr. Bean fans. People trolling through stuff.
I've got my finger on the pulse of popular culture.
You really do.
And it's Rowan Atkinson.
Still relevant today as he ever was. And we also received a really interesting bit of feedback on YouTube. Somebody left a comment saying, Mr. Bean is an emotion. I don't even know what that means. But thank you for your comment.
I think that's something young people say, and I won't encourage it, Stu. I won't.
But Mr. Bean is an emotion. I don't know what emotion.
Heartburn?
Perhaps. And the other bit of feedback I received is people love the idea of us making T-shirts, and they would definitely buy one saying, the only cop in LA.
The only cop in LA.
But if we're going down that route, we also need to get T-shirts that say, Scapelli! So, yes, who knows? If this podcast gets even more popular, we might start selling merch with T-shirts and we'll wear favourite slogans on there. And your favourite slogans. We'll see.
Well,
we'll
not
see.
My favourite slogan, because you don't want to wear my favourite slogan on a T-shirt.
What, nonce vibes?
Yeah, it's a picture of my face and nonce vibes. I think it's probably
sends the wrong message, doesn't it?
Will I have an excuse to say it about this film? Spoiler, yes.
Yes, it is a bit noncy. So moving swiftly on. So yes, this episode nomination came from me, and it is Hocus Pocus. Now, I chose this because we are in Halloween season. Ooh. We're in the month of October of all things spooky. And yeah, what better film to cover than, a Halloween classic, Hocus Pocus. So yeah, this film is about the 3 Sanderson sisters, some witches, who are condemned to death in 1693 for witchcraftery, and then they return 300 years later to wreak havoc on the town of Salem for one night only on Halloween. So there we are. Yes, so before we get into more detailed plot synopsis, now, we have covered 1993 because we covered Super Mario that came out from this year. So, Smith, do you have a little nuggets of information, some little spin you could put on this week's nomination of scene setting?
So I was thinking, it's Halloween. If it's unlucky, because if it was 1992, I'd be able to talk a little bit about Ghostwatch. But I can't because it's 1993 and we're a year removed from that TV classic. So I kind of thought, what can we say about Halloween in 1993 that might be worth mentioning? And I just looked at what's the number one film, and it was quite apt. The number one film, Halloween in the UK in 1993, was The Fugitive.
That spooky classic, yes.
That's spooky, yeah. And then the number one song was Meat Loaf's I Would Do Anything for Love, but I Won't Do That. I can keep going with this.
It's kind of horror-y, because in that video, he's in a castle, he kind of looks like a beast and all that sort of thing.
Well, you see, yeah. And the biggest news item at the time was the Russian constitutional crisis. But
oh dear.
But that's actually quite boring and technical, and whilst I could go into it, I'm not gonna. So no, nothing of any interest happening at this point in October of 1993. However, it wasn't released in October of 1993 in America. It was released in July.
Yeah, which is
So,
ludicrous because it was
which
released in October over here in the UK, which makes total sense.
and do you think? And again, spoilers for later. But do you think that a Halloween film released in July 1993 did well at the box office? No, it didn't.
Shocking. Absolutely shocking. So, yeah, quite right. It did come out in October 1993. But when did you see it, Smith? Did you see it when it first came out in cinema, or was it much later? And by what means did you see it?
So I didn't see it at the cinema, as far as I remember, and my memory is subject to questions at times. But I don't believe I saw it at the cinema. My earliest memory of seeing this was at a friend's house on VHS. Latterly, I would then record it from the television and had it on my own recorded VHS, which I then recorded over with Train Spotting off the telly. And I remember that because my parents wouldn't let me watch Train Spotting because they thought it glamorized heroin because they hadn't seen it. So I recorded over Hocus Pocus, and on the video VHS and the little strip at the front where you write the name of the film, I had Hocus Pocus, then in really small writing, not really actually Train Spotting.
Classic Smith.
Classic Smith. That'll show him. How about you? When did you first see this
Yeah.
classic?
So I didn't see it at cinema. I believe we rented it on video. So back in the day, stuff would come out 6 months later. So if that was 6 months later, it must have been Easter time, 1994. I would have seen that. So we would have rented it from Blockbuster Video, probably during school holidays. I watched it. I remember rather enjoying it. And then I remember when the Disney Channel was being launched on Sky, one of the first films they were showing as a premiere was Hocus Pocus, and they were showing that around Halloween time of 1994. And I remember being out that day with some friends and being like, I have to get home for 6 o'clock because Hocus Pocus is going to be on the Disney Channel. I was ever so excited. And yeah, I mean, we'll probably cover it later.
Oh,
I fell over. Oh no. But yeah, I couldn't wait to get home and watch it because I really enjoyed it as a child. Watched it many, many times over the years. And yeah, it's a fun film. It's especially a fun film to watch around Halloween time.
I think it was one of those films that I had on pretty heavy rotation when I first had it on recorded on VHS. It was one of those you just pop it on a Saturday morning while you're doing other stuff.
Yeah, it's a very, very easy watch. You can pay attention to it. You can not pay attention to it. You're not going to miss much. But yeah, it's fun. So cool. All right then. So shall we delve into the plot?
Yes, let's.
So we begin on Halloween night or Halloween morning in 1693 in Salem, USA. And we get some nice overhead shots of lakes and woodlands and village homes. And then we come to the village home of the Binks family, where Thackeray Binks awakes and realizes that
Binks.
I think it's a cool
What
name.
a name. What a name.
I always thought it was Zachary Binks, and then on rewatch, I was like, oh, it's Thackeray, TH. So yeah. So Thackeray Binks. Go on.
So this is the first bit. So I'd recently seen The Crucible, Arthur Miller's The Crucible at the theatre. And I started with this and I was like, I don't think this is going to be as somber a take on witchcraft in Salem in the 1600s as that play was.
Perhaps not.
Especially when two young men with slightly troubling accents look out over the woods and say, but nay, they conjure. Here we go.
Here we go. But yes, so yeah, Thackeray Binks awakes to see that his sister Emily's vanished. And then this is when we get that first hearing of Sarah Jessica Parker going, come little children and take thee away. And then he meets his friend Elijah outside and he says, quite rightly, he said, look, they conjure. And then we see purple smoke and light in the distance and little girl Emily running towards it.
So, especially off he runs Thackeray. Now, as it turns out, when I was looking at the cast list for this film afterwards, Thackeray is voiced by someone different.
For the cat, yeah.
No, I think it's the same even when he's a boy because the voice is the same. So I think
really?
he's different. So very early on in this film, and I don't know about you, but I've noticed this as I get older when I look at 90s stuff in particular. You get a lot of ADR, like you can hear the ADR.
Okay.
You can hear the additional dialogue recording for anyone who doesn't know. Which is where people come back and re-record their lines afterwards because for whatever reason they don't pick it up on set well enough, so they redo them. And it just feels like you can hear a disembodied voice talking whilst I noticed it a few times in this film, but this in particular with him at the beginning, I was like, that voice is not coming from his face.
No, I didn't spot that. Although I did see at the end when it was like voice of Binks. I was like, what do you mean voice of Binks? Surely it's the same, but no, yeah, apparently not.
Yeah.
But I don't know, mate.
I would say when he runs off into the woods to go and find his sister, put some fucking shoes on.
Well, he had just jumped out of bed. He probably didn't have time for all that.
You were going to get an infection.
Well, that's not the worst thing that's going to happen to him. Spoiler alert. Anyway, so Binks tells his friend Elijah to summon his father and all the villagers, and then Binks runs off towards the smoke. Then we see Sarah Jessica Parker luring in Emily into the house. And then we see Binks staring through the window of what's going on. So this is the point where we meet the sisters for the first time. So it's Mary, played by Kathy Najimy, Sarah, played by Sarah Jessica Parker, and Winifred, or Winnie, played by Bette Midler. Now, at this stage, they're all looking very ugly and haggard and that sort of thing. So they're boiling up some sort of potion, which they then feed to children. And then I guess they just suck the souls and the life out of the child via smoke.
It's a pretty dark opening.
Yeah.
It's
really
pretty
dark.
I mean, it's weird. Like, I think I say this every week, but like the tonal shifts on it, because you've got the three sisters who are just swinging for the fences comedically. Like they are overacting. They're just devouring the scenery, while at the same time, in the opening 5 minutes of the film, murdering a child.
Yeah. Yeah, and oh no, I was going to say something, but that might spoil your trivia later, so we'll talk about that later. But then films back then were dark. I mean, look at The Witches, the Roald Dahl book term film. That shit is dark, man. That is fucking dark. There's some really horrible scenes. There's a bit in that film where this little girl was walking down an alley, it just gets snatched away by a witch. I was like, that's horrible.
Okay. That's horrible. Well, I mean, this has got that creepy fucking book. It looks like the Necronomicon with a blinking eye.
It looks very much like the Necronomicon. My notes keep saying the Book of the Dead. The Book of the Dead. Oh yeah.
My notes keep saying the theme tune from the Addams Family that you've nicked.
Yeah. Anyway, so Binks makes his way inside, and then he's promptly attacked by the witches. They're shocking him with all sorts of stuff. And at this point, Emily's drunk the potion. They inhale all the smoke, and it makes them look younger. So Sarah Jessica Parker starts looking really hot. Catherine and Jimmy and Bette Midler not so much, but they look certainly younger.
I made the note. Bette Midler looks exactly the same. The other two have got younger. She looks exactly the same.
Yeah, she does make the comment, like, well, younger.
This is an interesting one, this as well, because I was looking it up. Because I thought when I was younger, I remember that Bette Midler in this film was like really, really old. So I looked up how old was she when she was in this film. About 47.
It's crazy.
Not that old at all. Kathy Najimy was like 38. She's my age.
I know. It's frightening, isn't it?
Sarah Jessica Parker was like in her late 20s. So they kind of aged the sisters 10 years apart, which is a bit weird for sisters. I mean, that's quite a gap. But
Witches.
Sarah Jessica Parker now is like 58.
Yeah.
She's older now than Bette Midler was when she was in the first one.
But then I've seen Hocus Pocus 2, which we're not covering, I might add, and they don't actually look too bad. Considering it's nearly 30 years later, they still look, presentable. Right. So this is funny. So Emily's now dead, but if you look carefully, you can see her still moving. She sat in the chair, and you can see like her legs like going from side to side. So I don't know whether the actor was just really restless and just like do.
Can't sit still for nothing.
Bloody kids. So for punishment for Binks breaking in and causing havoc, they decide to turn him into a cat. But not only will he be a cat, he will be immortal. So he can't even just be a cat for like 9 years and then die or whatever. No, he's got to live for the rest of his life as a cat.
This is the first bit where Sarah Jessica Parker's like, "Oh, hang him on a hook and let me play with him." I'm like, he's a child. Stop that. Yeah, also, I've seen other films that start like that.
Is this going to be Nonce Vibes bingo as we go through
this? I mean, it happens a couple of times.
More than a couple of times.
Yeah.
Moving swiftly on. So Binks' father and the villagers arrive, and they're going to hang the witches, but at the same time they want to know what's happened to Binks. Now this really annoyed me because Binks the cat can talk. So I don't know whether at this stage he doesn't realise he could talk, because why does just go, yeah, Dad, I'm still alive. Look what these arseholes did to me. But no, instead he's just being a bit of a pest, like going in between people's legs and whatever else.
Is what they're suggesting here that in 300 years of being alive, regular house cat could learn to speak?
Well, like an evolution.
I reject that theory.
Is it like Red Dwarf, where cat has evolved and it can now speak, or something like that?
That's not how evolution works. He's going to learn how to speak.
No, I read it as Binks didn't realise he could talk, and then later on realised he could talk. I don't think it's an evolution thing. But yeah, so just as they're about to be hung, they say a spell that they don't say 300 years. They just say, on a full moon Halloween night, a virgin will light the black flame candle and it will bring us back. And at which point they are hung and they are dead.
First 5 minutes of film, dead kid.
Yeah.
The women being hung.
You see their legs like dangling and everything. It's some dark shit. Yeah. Really, really dark. Yeah, and then we cut back to present day 1993, Halloween, and a very excitable teacher dressed as a witch is telling a classroom full of kids this story. I'm like, what class is this? English class? Drama
Well,
class?
it's by the looks of some of the students, a class of kids who are about 30. There's a couple of like grown adults in there. The teacher is Kathleen Freeman, who
She's in
was
everything.
yeah. I know her
Everything.
as the Penguin from the Blues Brothers. Most of all is where I know her from. She goes all the way back to being in Singing in the Rain. Like she has had a
No.
she's Singing in the Rain. So she's had a storied Hollywood career.
Yeah.
But I know her as the Penguin from the Blues Brothers more than anything.
I remember from being in Dragonet to that grumpy woman they speak to on the front porch. She's also in Gremlins 2. She's in The Naked Gun 33
Yes,
the third.
she is in
And she's
Gremlins too.
and she's in this really creepy horror film. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called The Willies. It's about these three kids telling each other ghost stories. No, it's not what you think. It's about these three
Yes, I've
kids.
seen that film as well. It's I don't remember it being
Dark.
spooky.
It's meant to
Oh,
be
I
a
haven't
kids'
seen
film.
it.
It's fucking dark, man.
I
But
haven't seen it.
it's weird. Yeah, it's Sean Astin from The Goonies and two other lads, and they're in a tent telling each other ghost stories. So it's kind of like a Tales from the Crypt type thing. But it's meant to be a kids' film, but it's not a kids' film. But it's not quite scary enough to be a horror film. It's like this mesh, and it's just really unsettling scenes in it. Well, anyway, yes, we digress. So yes, the excitable teacher is telling this story about the witches, and then we meet Max. And he's thoroughly unimpressed with his story. Doesn't like Halloween. Thinks it's a load of crap. He what?
Played by Omri Katz, not a name.
I mean, it could be. Or is that his stage name?
I don't know, but that's not a name. Omri Katz.
I think that's kind of a cool name if you ask me. But yeah,
I think he is like I just kept whenever he was on the screen in the early scenes, he's been like traditional cool kid 90s. I was like, you
yeah, with his tie-dyed top.
He's such an arseake.
Yeah, and he starts heckling and all that, and then he starts immediately flirting with Alison, who sat near him. They're talking about Halloween, and then he boldly writes down his phone number and gives it to her in front of everyone. I was like, "You got balls, man!"
Tosser.
And then, just as you mentioned, some 40-year-old guy walks over. He's meant to be a student. Goes, "Yeah, fat chance."
Yeah, someone's dad. So, oh dear, yeah. Yeah, this is the bit as well where she what was the character's name? I forget the character's name. Alison. Where she corrects him about the origins of Halloween and is completely incorrect herself in the origins of Halloween. She's just making shit up.
No, she said it's All Hallows Eve. That's when the dead can return.
That's not what it's based on, though. Is anyone who's ever seen Halloween 3 Season of the Witch will know.
Go on, enlighten us.
We don't have time, but
we don't have time.
I'll talk about it another time. But Samhain, anyway, Samhain is the original. Anyway, never mind. Also, I won't listen to a woman who can't spell Vanessa.
What do you mean you can't spell Vanessa?
The actress's name is Vanessa Shaw. VIN. Is that Vanessa?
Yes. I read a comment somewhere. Someone said she's like cut price Hilary Swank. I was like, oh yeah, that's it.
She's in the Hills of Eyes remake.
Yeah, that's shit.
Oh, I quite enjoyed it.
You would. Anyway, so outside, Max catches up to Alison and introduces himself. It's like, you've already done this. You've given her a bit of paper with your name on it. We get a bit of exposition.
Also, you've been there a while.
Yeah, you've been there at least a couple of weeks or so. And then, yeah, he starts explaining about how he's come from LA, he doesn't really like it here in Salem. And then she gives him a bit of paper back. And when he opens it, she's giving him back his phone number. However, it's written completely differently from how he gave it to her. Like, that is a terrible continuity error. That's the first thing I spotted. Like, you've either written it back as a joke to him, or the producers just did something really stupid and didn't check for continuity. So yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a few continuity errors in this. Number one being there's lots of sort of orange and red leaves all over the ground, and lots of trees with full green leaves everywhere.
Well, I presume it was probably shot in like the spring or something like that.
Yeah, I'll just get some bin bags full of leaves and dump them around. No one will notice. Oh no, pedants will notice.
Although the original Halloween, John Carpenter's was filmed in the spring, and they just threw around a bunch of old leaves. So
and you can notice that as well.
Okay. Anyway, different film for a different time. So Max rides home via a cemetery for some reason on his bike, and this is where he meets bullies Jay and Ice, who then decide to steal his trainers. And Jay, I put down, looks like Bon Jovi.
These were characters I kept forgetting were in the film, even during the film, and then every time they reappeared, wishing that they weren't in the film.
They are so obnoxious. I know we're supposed to hate them, but they're so fucking obnoxious. I really hope you get killed, but they don't, unfortunately.
I mean, not for want of trying.
Yeah, but they're obnoxious. But yes, they steal Max's shoes because he doesn't have any money or cigarettes. Yeah. So Max rides home in his socks, and then he comes home and meets his criminally underdeveloped parents. We see like 2 scenes, and that's it. And he's like, he proper hates them for moving them there. They never explain why they've moved there either. It's just okay, you've just uprooted from
Yeah.
LA to just move to Salem for some reason.
The bit where he comes in and they go, "How was school?" He's like, "It sucked." And they're like, "What's your language?" Like, what?
He said,
What did he say? Did he
if
say
he
it?
said it was fucking shit, I'd understand. But no, oh dear. But yeah, he said he wasn't wearing any shoes. I was like, well, most people do take their shoes off when they come in the house, but all right, that's fine.
And then he said, "Oh, it must be some kind of protest." And I was like, "What?
That did
Like,
make
what's
me laugh.
happening?"
That did make me laugh for some reason. Like, all right, what protest you go, hippie? Oh dear. Then we meet Max's sister Danny, played by young Thora Birch, who tries to scare him by jumping out of a closet. And she really wants to take him trick or treating, and naturally, being a 16-year-old kid or whatever he's supposed to be, he doesn't want to do it. And then I don't know if you noticed, his room is really peculiar. It's got like a flight of stairs that goes up the stairs. Like, where does that go to, and why?
Well, I think it goes up there so he can go and sulk, because that's what he does. He walks up there and he goes, like a 10-year-old. Now, Thora Birch, weirdly, for a child actor, was not annoying. Which is one of the few child actors where it's actually like perfectly entertaining screen presence. However, it's weird from the outset, where she's like lying on the bed going, "Ooh, I'm Alison, kiss me, kiss me." It's like, that's weird.
Nonce rhyme tick.
Well, yeah, it's not that. Not just nonsense. It's just weird.
Yeah,
And then
well,
this is the bit that I love when he has a go at her.
Mhm.
Then she goes, "Oh, I can't remember what she says, but it's something like, oh, it's not my fault the way to move it." And then he apologizes and agrees to go trick or treating with her anyway. And it's like, well, that's the character arc wrapped up in all of one scene.
no, isn't it because she screams for mum and then basically he's made
Oh
to
yeah,
do it?
that's right.
Yeah, no, I think you're talking about it later when he apologizes.
Yeah.
But anyway,
But
so,
in the next scene, yeah.
yeah. So he's dressed as a rapper and he's being a real miserable shit. And you learn that the parents are going to an adult party, which we see later on. It looks a lot more fun. Yeah, so he's being all miserable and cantankerous and all that. And this is when we meet those bullies again, who then proceed to rob them of all their chocolate because apparently they've got to pay a toll, even though Thora Birch isn't scared of them whatsoever and basically tells them to fuck off. Yeah, that's the bit we're then talking about. Max is then really mean to Danny. Says, "Oh, like, oh, I hate you, and I just want to go home." And then she starts crying and all that, and then immediately he apologizes. Oh, okay, cool. Let's take you back trick or treating again. So, right,
Character
1
arc.
minute.
Well, we've all learned a lesson. End of film.
Yeah. Then they know it's a really rich house. They must be like, oh, that's where all the good candy is. And then they go inside without knocking because it's perfectly acceptable to walk in someone's house. They walk in there and there's an eyes wide shut party going on in there. I was like, what is this?
You walk into anybody's house in America without being invited, and you will get shot.
Yes, ordinarily, but I think Halloween they might make an exception.
It's a very 90s view of what rich people do. Like, is that very much they live in a big house, they're going to have these great big colonial era parties, and everyone's going to dress up fancy because they're wealthy. It's like, no, they'll all just be hammered.
Yeah, really, really hammered. But yeah, they're all dressed up like Renaissance people or something. It's weird. And then coincidentally, it's Alison's house, the girl who Max has been flirting with earlier on, and then Danny starts talking about yaboos, which is basically his slang for tits, basically. And I'm like, oh God, I don't want a little girl talking about this. It's weird.
She like between the like, oh, kiss me, I'm Alison, and this is like hypersexualized for like an 8-year-old. It's like, why is she talking about yabos? Who's ever called them yabos?
I know. Nonce vibes. Tick.
Get strong nonce vibes.
Indeed. Oh, then for a bit of exposition,
sorry, I've just written my notes and I've just written down yabos.
Nothing else, just yabos.
With a question mark next to it.
Or a head in hands emoji. Oh, right. Anyway, then through exposition, Alison mentions that her mum used to run the Sanderson House Sisters house, which is now a museum, or was a museum, but apparently it's closed down because spooky stuff happened there. I was like, what spooky stuff? What happened? The witches are dead. Like, what's been going on there? So maybe a tramp might be living in there or something.
That's what I thought. Like, all you're going to get if you go and break in there now is just going to be a meth house, and someone is going to use bits of it as a toilet, and you might get stabbed.
Indeed. But Max thinks it's a great idea to go there and begs Daddy to let them do this. And I'm like, all right, fine. So yeah, they arrive at the museum and it's all cobwebbed and dilapidated. And I wrote down just how long was this been closed down for? And why is there still merchandise inside?
Yeah, that's what they closed it down and just left it fully stocked, and no one's robbed it, burnt it down, or used it to take meth in.
Yeah, and also Salem, by the sounds of it, is a town that really, really loves Halloween and celebrates Halloween. So why would they close it down? Why didn't someone just reopen it or do something else with it? Or why don't people just break in on Halloween and spend the night there? I don't know, but yeah. So they go in there. Max finds a lighter and starts messing about, and then we get a jump scare from a cat, which we now know is Binks because he was looking through the window earlier on.
Remakes.
Yes. And then Max thinks it's a great idea to light the black flame candle, even though they said don't do it, it will bring the witches back. He thinks it's a load of hocus pocus.
He said it. He said the title.
Then just before they do that, we see the Book of the Dead. What was the book called in this? Bette Midler keeps calling it book, but does it have a proper name? Just the magic book?
Is it the Maleficent Maleforum? Is that the name, or am I thinking of something else?
I don't know. I just kept writing.
I think it's just the book. I think it's just the book. I think they just call it the book.
Yeah. So, yep. Max lights the candle. Everything starts rumbling, and then the witches come through the door, and they're back.
They spent a lot of time mentioning that he's a virgin. And I thought it's weird because in most 90s films, if you had like a kid being called a virgin, he'd deny it. But no.
He's quite happy with it. It's almost like he's proud. I'm a proud Christian, damn it.
I'm saving myself for marriage.
I'm saving myself for Alison. But yeah, they do keep mentioning that quite a bit. So yeah, nonce vibes tick. Then, yep, the kids hide as the sisters are going around, and then Mary Witch has got the power to smell children, at which point she then sees Danny, and then Danny explains to the witches that it's 1993 and they realize they've been gone for 300 years. At this point, they decide for some reason to boil Danny in the cauldron, I guess. I don't know, for some reason. And then Max tries to stop them, and then they proceed to start throwing electricity at him. Or what I assume is electricity. And then what happens then? Yeah, then Alison appears and starts hitting them with brooms and frying pans and stuff. Like, surely these witches, they could just overpower them with visible forces and just throw them away. But no, they're easily defeated by brooms and frying pans.
The film is very uncertain as to the level of power that these witches have. They're both very powerful when they need to be, and very easily defeated by frying pans when they need to be. It's kind of a weird throwback. It's a very 90s film. It's very 90s, but it's also that weird thing that the Americans kept doing, and I think they kind of stopped now. But looking back at Three Stooges and the old slapstick films of the 1940s and 1950s as something to keep throwing back to, because there's a lot of that in it as well. There's a lot of sort of Curly Larry and Moe to the Three Witches. But yeah, they're having a great time.
Oh, absolutely.
I think there's a quote I read from Bette Midler who said it's the most fun she'd had in her career up to that point.
And you can tell they're having
a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. Then what happens? Then Binks the cat attacks Winnie, and then Max at this point uses his lighter to fool the witches because he lights a sprinkler in there which sets off water, and he says the rain of hell or some shit like that. And again, this goes back to now they're stupid. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they go through stages of outsmarting the kids, being all powerful, and then easily tricked by something silly like that. At which point then Binks then speaks to Max and tells him to grab the book and then get out there, which they do. Yeah. Then what happens? Oh yeah, the witches are about to leave and give chase, and the fire brigade arrive, and then they decide to hide from the fire brigade for some reason. I don't know why.
You think they're 300 years and you see a car for the first time, you ain't gonna know what it is. I mean, they get adapted pretty quickly in the same way that the kids get adapted pretty quickly to there being a bunch of witches flying around. They're like, oh no, all right, well, we have to deal with this.
Yeah.
I would say as well, actually, the Binks effect, which was done by a design house called Rhythm and Hughes, was surprisingly good for the time.
Yeah. I wrote that down. I liked about this. Binks looks good.
Binks does it. It's a good effect. So they've clearly taken their time with it.
He's in a nice blend of puppetry, CGI, and a real cat.
Yeah. Probably a little bit of Salem from Sabrina, but
yeah, and I read somewhere, but it's unsubstantiated that it was the same prop used in Sabrina. But I think that was just a rumor. I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I think that's just something someone wants to be true.
Yeah, but he does look very similar to Salem from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So Binks leads the kids to the cemetery, as apparently witches can't set foot in a cemetery as it's hallowed ground. And at this point, purely for exposition reasons and plot reasons, Binks shows them Billy Butcherson's grave. Now, at first I thought he said Billy Butcher. I was like, that's the boy, isn't it? That's Carl Urban's character. I was like, no, it's Billy Butcherson, not Billy Butcher. And explained that Billy was Winnie's lover and he was fucking Sarah Jessica Parker. So
Yeah,
because why wouldn't you?
that's the exact line of dialogue.
Yeah,
Right?
and they were all
Yeah,
like,
he was fucking Jessica Parker. Well, don't you mean whatever?
he was her lover. Yeah.
Anyway,
So,
yeah.
yes, sorry. The PG version, he was her lover, and then when he found out and poisoned him, and then sewed his mouth shut so he couldn't sell Satan her secrets or something in hell or something. So yeah, he's like, and this is what we're dealing with. And I'm like, you've purely just told him this, so when Billy comes later, we know who he is. He's not just a random. He's just come out of the ground for no reason. Yeah,
Foreshadowing.
foreshadowing. Then what happens? Then the witches discuss that they only have until dawn to become human again or prolong their life, and then they need to repeat what they were doing earlier on the film, which is to make potion, feed it to many children, and then literally suck the souls from the children to stay alive. But they need the book, and unfortunately, the book has been taken by the kids, those pesky kids. So they need to get the book back. Yeah. Then we cut back to the cemetery, and Binks is talking about Emily and how he's now immortal, and he's been guarding the house for every year, no, every Halloween night for the last 300 years. Why only? Oh no, because the spell was they'd be brought back on Halloween night, not any other night. So that begs the question: what if someone lit the lighter on another night? It just wouldn't work.
Probably. Yeah. What was he doing for the other 364 days of the year?
I know, poor sod. Talking to other cats.
Sitting about licking himself.
I mean, yeah. Weird.
I mean, if you could.
Yeah. And then also as well, I wrote down, Binks tells the kids not to fuck with that book. He must have told them about 3 times to stop opening that book. And they keep ignoring him every single time. And in which case...
Wait, don't open that book. I just want to just have a little... I mean, don't open it. But, you know, might be a recipe in there or something. Like...
I said don't open it. So
some money as a bookmark.
And then, yeah, because the book's cursed by magic, they can't burn it. I was like, what if you just buried it in the ground or like threw it in the bottom of the sea or something like that? I mean, there must be other ways of getting rid of this book. I don't know, maybe just flies back. Yeah, because the witches can't set foot in the cemetery, they arrive via brooms and they're trying to get the book back unsuccessfully, in which case then, yeah, that's when they summon Billy to come out of the ground because he can obviously walk on hallowed ground and the witches can't. Get a bit of a hoo-ha with Billy in the cemetery, chasing after them.
Again, the kids adapt very quickly to zombies being real.
People coming out of the ground.
Billy was played by Doug Jones, noted creature effects man from such works as Pan's Labyrinth.
What's the other thing he was? Wasn't he in The Shape of Water as well?
Yeah, Shape of Water, Pan's Labyrinth, Hellboy, Big with Guillermo del Toro. He's been in the latest series of Star Trek Discovery as well.
Wow,
has a fairly good career.
Man of many talents.
This was his first film, as I understand it.
Which is weird because he looks kind of old, but I guess that's just the makeup. And then
he's wearing a lot of makeup.
Yeah. He does come back for Hocus Pocus 2, spoiler alert, which we're not going to cover.
Nope.
Anyway. Yeah, it's all right. I didn't hate it. Well, I didn't love it. It was just, it was all right. Oh, no weapons. Then after the chase with Billy, they managed to knock off his head with a tree branch. And then the kids escape into, I written out, the Salem Crypt Tunnel is what Binks refers to it as.
Yeah, and that would take... I noticed about that. The thing I noticed is they jump in there and you hear them go, oh! And then when you see them jump in, it's like 2 foot.
Yeah.
It's like they landed. Went, oh!
And also, Max is going along with a lighter that's doing fuck all. I was like, why are you even lighting that? It's not doing anything. It's clearly lit that way. It'll burn someone. Yep. And then Billy gets after him in the tunnel, but he's quite a bit behind him. Now, this bit is so weird. The witches lose the scent of the kids, so they're like, what are we going to do? And at this point, a bus arrives. And the bus driver is such a pervert. And at first, I thought, is that John Bernthal, the Punisher? Because it looked well like him. And then I'm like, no, he would have been well young for that.
Yeah, about 10.
And then he says something, they ask what this contraption is, and they say it's a bus, and he says it will take you to your innermost desires. And they say, we desire children. And then he put, hey, that may take me a couple of tries, but I don't think that'll be a problem. What the absolute fuck? What does that mean?
Well, I think it's, when a man and a woman love each other very much, Jerry.
Yes, I just remember being really, really appalled by that in any sense of the way that saying was phrased. But yes. So anyway, the witches get onto the bus and off they go. So yeah, bus goes off and then Billy is still quite a bit far behind them and he's following them via the tunnels. And then at this point, as the kids exit the manhole cover, Binks is run over by the bus because Sarah Jessica Parker is sat on the pervy bus driver's lap driving the bus, and then poor Binks just gets run over. And yeah, presumably we think, oh no, the cat's dead. Like, well, no, he told you like 5 minutes ago he's immortal. So they all start being like, oh, the cat. I was like, he just told you he's immortal. So I don't know whether they're just thinking, oh, if he dies naturally, he can't, but he can be died by other means. I don't know.
Let's not bury the lead with the sentence there of the cat just told you. The talking cat.
But yes, and then he's like, oh, hate it when that happens. And then off they go. And it's all just forgotten about very, very quickly.
Yeah, I was thinking like, oh, happens all the time. It's just gives me something to do for 5 minutes, so I just let myself get run over. It's a masochistic thing at this point. I rather like it.
Yeah, I don't know whether he tried doing a Groundhog Day thing. Like, he got to like year 100. Like, right, fuck this, and just try to kill himself.
I once threw myself into a blender. That took a while to put myself back together from, let me tell you.
That's true. Does he go again like some sort of Terminator 2 thing? But yeah. Anyway, so the witches then smell children, so they exit the bus. The bus driver, I wrote, unsuccessfully doesn't pull Sarah Jessica Parker because Winnie cock blocks him. Which there are children.
I recall. This is one of those films that kind of came at the right time for me, about being like 10 or 11 or so. And Sarah Jessica Parker in this film was very much part of my young man. Well, I'm not gay.
Yes, she's very, very attractive in this film. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. So there are children everywhere trick-or-treating, which confuses the witches because they're like, well, we can smell children, but we can't see them because they're obviously in disguise.
I like the costume work in this film. The amount of effort that's gone into having everybody dressed up is very, very clever. And it's good to kind of like peek around and see if you can spot like different costumes and different people.
Yeah, I don't know if this is part of your trivia. There's a particular costume I spotted later on. But yeah, but even a little kid walks past wearing a spacesuit. I was like, that's amazing. But now this bit is so weird. So a bloke dressed as Satan, who's not even having a party, he's just dressed as Satan.
Do you know who that is?
Oh, I read somewhere, but I've forgotten what his name is.
Gary Marshall.
Gary Marshall.
He directed Pretty Woman and Beaches, starring Bette Midler. He's he's got a huge film career behind him. Very strange bit of casting, but I enjoyed it.
But isn't his wife in it actually his sister or something? I read.
Yes, yeah, she is. I think it's might be his daughter.
I don't know, whatever. But yeah. But anyway, he's dressed as Satan. He's not having a party. He's just outside of his house being like, "Whoa!" And then he invites the witches in because they think it's their master. I was like, surely you've met the real Satan before. You know this isn't him. But
you've been to hell for 300 years. You've said that.
Yeah, that's something that got me thinking because Bette Midler says it later on. Oh, I've been to hell before, and I think it's quite lovely. I was like, but have you been there for 300 years, or have you only been there briefly? Were you just unconscious when you were dead? I don't.
Why do you want to come? Yeah.
Anyway, it's very weird. So they go inside to Satan's house. And then we get another Nancy bit where the kids speak to who they think is a cop, but he's a bloke dressed up for Halloween. But for some reason, he seems to have a cop motorcycle. Like, how have you got that? Unless he's just made his motorbike look like a cop motorbike. I don't know. And also, where will they go? Was he going to the adult party that everyone else is at? Or was he going to that weird Eyes Wide Shut party? I don't know.
It's funny because they were like, oh, it's not a real cop. It's like, yeah, but it wouldn't have mattered if it was a real cop. A real cop's not going to go like, I'm going to take you seriously.
Yeah, we've resurrected 3 witches. Also, instead of saying all that crap, why didn't they just say there are 3 psychotic women out on the prowl?
No, just at no point in this, and it happens with the parents later. Just get the cat who can talk to tell them what's going on,
and then they'll probably have some weight to what they're saying, right?
Yeah, the cat can talk. It's pretty compelling evidence.
Yeah, but instead,
hello, I'm Zachary Binks.
Yeah, okay, we believe everyone now. But yeah, it's this bit's ridiculous. Like, they start saying, oh, he lit the candle and he's a virgin. And then the cop starts going, you're a virgin. I was like, look, this is making me really uncomfortable and I don't like it. Even when I was a kid, I was like, why is he asking him this?
Was it? But there's no joke. There's no line there or anything. It's literally just him aggressively asking him something. Also, what is the woman who comes out and joins him dressed as?
Some sort of slapper. I don't know. I have no idea.
What's the theme here? Because
oh yeah, it's like some good cop bad cop sex game. I don't know. I don't want to know. Dirty people. But anyway, the couple on the motorbike then run over the manhole cover as Billy's coming out of it and his fingers get cut off. Poor Billy. He goes through some hell with us. Then we cut back to Satan's house and there's some really weird shit going on in there. Like Sarah Jessica Parker starts dancing with him and Bette Midler mistakes the kitchen for a torture chamber. Catherine and Jimmy's getting excited watching TV and eating What's-Its.
I will say, and I haven't mentioned it before, Kathleen and Jimmy is fucking brilliant in this film. Like she
Yeah,
is
it's really
putting in
funny.
such a shift. Every little thing, like whenever she gets slapped, she makes these weird little noises. And I don't know how she did that with her mouth for the entire thing
Oh, yeah.
because it must have been deeply uncomfortable.
And there's a bit when Bette Midler starts slapping her about the face, and she keeps on changing it, and just
But she also goes ooh ooh.
yeah. But it's
Yeah.
but Sarah Jessica Parker's brilliant in this because there's just little bits they do in the background every now and again that's really funny. They just keep like doing silly things like twirling around or dancing or just getting too excited and stuff. Because this is the Bette Midler show, but those two are very, very funny in it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was some good casting. At which point, yeah, Satan's wife is getting really angry and then sends the dog to chase them away. Well, I don't know why they'd be frightened by that.
Weird bit of trivia. Kathina Jimmy's dog.
Yes, I did read that. And just before they went into Satan's house earlier, Bette Midler turned around and goes, ugh, and scares some kids away. One of the kids is dressed as Michael Myers.
I definitely saw a Jason Voorhees walking around at one point.
I didn't spot that. So there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And also, all the more while that was going on, there were some girls outside dressed as the Sanderson sisters, and they found the witches' brooms and they run off with them because I'm like, oh, our costumes are now complete. Then the witches come outside and realise that Halloween's become a joke, and people dress up and they go trick or treating, and they're like, oh, this is just folly, which is also the plot of Halloween 3. That the toy company's annoyed that Halloween is no longer sacred.
I
It's
was
just
looking for the Halloween 3 costumes, but I didn't see them.
shame, real shame.
I was hoping they'd be in there. Yeah.
Yeah, if there was a pumpkin, a skull, and a witch walking along at the same time.
Yeah.
So then the kids decide to tell their parents, so they go to the cool adult Halloween party. And they say something like, how are we ever going to find our parents in there? What, they're just going to look like your parents, surely. They're wearing like masks over their faces. And then the daddy's dressed as Dracula, and he's a bit noncy towards Alison.
Yeah, why is everyone in this film so creepy? He's like, no, call me Dadula. It's like, no, get away, you dirty old man.
Then the mum is dressed as Madonna, but really she just looks like an old tart. She's like, I'm meant to be Madonna. Like, no, you don't. You look like some ladies who go like over 40s clubs or something.
What, like Madonna?
Like Madonna, yeah. At which point on cue, the witches arrive. Then Max gets up on stage on the microphone. He starts trying to explain, no, look, witches are here. Look, they're over there. And then Bette Midler seizes the opportunity to be like, oh, that's an introduction to do a song. And then we get the most iconic part of the movie when she gets on the stage and sings, I Put a Spell on You. Now, this bit
How did you know that song?
No, the guy is singing it just before. He's singing it really slowly, the guy dressed as the skeleton on the stage, and I think she's paying attention. But yes, you're quite right. How did she know all the lyrics? How did Sarah Jessica Parker and Catherine and Jimmy know the choreography and go so strong, so strong? But yeah, I don't know. This bit, I've read somewhere that what she was doing, she was putting all the adults under a spell by singing that.
Yeah, that was quite clear in the film.
Because me, I just thought, like, why are these irresponsible parents partying until 7 o'clock in the morning?
She says something like dance till you drop. Like, she does say that. Like there is a.
I just thought it was the song. But yeah.
No. That was, I thought, quite clear.
Not
I mean, again, it's not consistent as to what their powers are. At no point have we been told prior to this that they can, use song to enchant people beyond Sarah Jessica Parker's ability to.
Yeah, that's her power. They've all got powers. Like Bette Midler's the potion person. Kevin and Jimmy can smell the scent of children. Sarah Jessica Parker sings and lures kids to their death, which is fucked up.
I just think Bette Midler wanted a chance to sing.
100%. That was part of the deal.
She just wanted to put a song in it. Yeah, I'll be doing that. And they're like, oh, all right.
Cool.
Don't argue with Bette Midler.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's every Halloween party you'll ever go to that song. So
it's an entertaining bit of the film. I didn't hate it. But usually when they have musical interludes in films, I hate it. So
yeah. In the second Hocus Pocus, they really shoehorn some of that shit in. I was like, no, this is rubbish. Like, it's fine in the first one, not the second one.
I have a feeling, without having seen it, that the second one is going to shoehorn lots of references into the first one, be a loose, just retelling of the first one, and in some way try to redeem the villains at some point in a way that doesn't make any sense.
That's literally the film, Smith.
Yep, damn right.
No need to watch it. No need to watch
it. I've seen loose modern remakes. I've seen them.
And then at this point, Billy then arrives at the party and scares the kids off. Now, this bit, when they're taking refuge in an alleyway, this bit's strange. Alison sees an old oven and she's like, I've got an idea. I'm like, well, okay. And then the kids have this idea to lure the witches to the school to burn them. So my first question is, why is there a massive oven in the school?
It's a kiln. So lots of schools have pottery classes.
Oh, it's a pottery oven.
It's a kiln. They're the bloody kiln. Stay out of the kiln. Stay out of the bloody kiln. Yep. But they
Yeah,
don't stay out of the bloody kiln. They go in the bloody kiln
yeah,
in a
they
bit.
do. So
I also found this a bit weird because Sarah Jessica Parker definitely sees Alison in the alley. So they're hiding in the alley, and Sarah Jessica Parker comes back, and there's a bit where she looks at her, and then Bette Midler calls her, and she runs off, and it's like, she definitely saw her.
that's odd. But yeah.
How did...
Anyway. I don't know. They followed to the school. I can only assume they just followed the scent to the school. And then somehow or another, they've had the keys to open the school and get in and also operate the tannoy system. And they lure them into the kiln by using the French speaking lessons on a tape recorder. Shut them inside. Yeah, shot them inside it and burn them. And then they all start celebrating and dancing around. Now, why didn't Binks know this plan wouldn't work? First of all, he hasn't turned back into a boy. And second of all, he must know, no, that ain't going to do shit. You need to just wait till dawn until the spell breaks. But for whatever reason,
they keep doing that. They keep doing that in this film as well. And they keep they're kind of messing with the stakes. So, at first it's like, oh, they've got this spell and they'll come back. And then 5 minutes after they're back, it's, oh, by the way, if we don't kill a kid by tonight, then we will die. It's like, well, you just added that to add a bit of stakes.
Exactly.
To make any of this make sense. Yeah.
And surely when he put that spell on right at the start of the film, why didn't she not put any of these conditions on? Why not just, whoever lights the candle will just come back full time? Not just for one night.
Yeah, I'd have put no conditions on my spell.
Exactly.
I bloody well feel like it.
But anyway, their plan didn't work. So Max and Danny go back to Max's house with Alison, and presumably they're going to adopt Binks as a cat. They walk in and go, Mom, we got a new cat. I was like, yeah, I'm sure they'll be fine when you bring some old Moggy into this house. That's no problem.
They can also a cat that can talk.
Yeah, what are they going to be like? Don't talk. Shh. Could be our secret.
Isn't this the bit where Binks, I think just before this, where Binks, Zachary Binks, says something like, oh, it's avenging my sister. And Max is like, you really miss her, don't you? He's like, what, his dead fucking sister? Yeah, he probably does.
Man, you got to stop blaming yourself for that.
Shit. Yeah, you got to stop blaming yourself for it. It's like, well, he doesn't, because kind of, he didn't do anything, and she did get murdered.
Yeah, and he tried his absolute best, and now he's a cat. So
yeah,
he's got nothing to feel sorry about.
Yeah. Also, yeah, he calls him Mrs. A, you fucking idiot.
Weird. But yeah, all of the kids and Binks decide to have a little nap round at Max's house, at which point the sisters aren't dead. All the smoke that came out from the chimney goes back in, and they burst out the kiln, speaking in French. Then what happens? Then when they're back at the... Oh, was that the bit where they meet the bullies? Yes, that's it. So then they come outside and they see the bullies again. They see Jay and Ice, and they call them old chicks. And for some reason, that really fucks them off, because then they take them back to their house and put them in cages.
Why is it the ugly chicks who stay out late? It's like, sorry, have you seen Sarah Jessica Parker in this film?
Why did you say the two ugly ones and the hot one?
Why is it always these sort of and hello?
But I love the way she doesn't turn around and go ugly. She turns around and goes chicks. I was like, surely you would have been more offended by ugly. But anyway,
you don't know what chicks means.
Exactly. But yeah, we're back at the witch's house, and the bullies are now in cages going, oh, let us out. And then they realise that they can't remember the spell to make the children susceptible to having their souls removed, so they need to get the book back. Which
she's like dead man's tongue, and then Sarah Jessica Parker's like toes. It's like, be quiet. she
said the right thing. Yeah,
she did the right thing. Yeah, enjoyed that.
Yep. But they realise they need the book. And then after a brief sleep, Alex and Max then realise that, it's really unfair what's happened to Binks. Maybe we could use the book to bring it back. Stop fucking with the book! What did he say? 2 or 3 times. Stop fucking with the book! But no, completely ignore him and decide to open the book, which, of course, emits a massive light out, and then that's going to bring the witches to them. Where do they listen to the cat? What happens?
Typically, find if a cat's talking to you, either you've taken too much LSD or you should probably listen to
it. He knows his shit. He's been around.
But don't mix those two situations up. If you've taken too much LSD, and this is a public service announcement, don't listen to the talking cat.
Indeed, or give the cat the LSD. Then what happens? Yeah, then they find a broom, a mop, and a Hoover in the cupboard because their brooms got stolen earlier by those girls, and they fly towards Max's house to get it back. Then, at which point, Binks tells them to stop fucking with the book. So
again. What are you doing? I told you to stop fucking with the book.
And then we actually get some really good creepy bits of tension then. You see the witch's nails cutting down the curtain, and there are doors slowly creaking open, and they're inside the house. And then Alison earlier read in the book that apparently salt protects you from witches, so we need to go get some salt. At which Max opens the cupboard and there's massive product placement for 7-Up, which really cracked me up.
Oh no, we've got 7-Up, Mountain Dew, oh,
Pepsi.
Johnny D. Oh, great, sold.
Now, I don't know whether Alison was messing about, whether it actually said it on the salt, but it said apparently the salt will protect you from witches, zombies, and ex-boyfriends. Like, yeah, what about new boyfriends? And they're about to have a really cringe kiss, and that's when they realise that, oh, hang on, no, the witches are probably in the house.
Sorry, you question whether or not she was fucking about. Actually written on the salt.
Yeah, exactly. I think she was just messing about. Then what? Yes, then the witches are in the house. They've got the book back. They beat the absolute shit out of Max. And then grab Danny and Binks for some reason. I don't know why they took Binks with them. And the book. Why do they need the cat?
I don't know.
Took him with him.
Bloody cat. Spoiling my plans.
Yep. Take the book and they fly away while Alison is just throwing salt around. What's that gonna do? Why just throw salt at them?
Yeah.
And then this is where we get another really iconic bit. So Sarah Jessica Parker then sings that song, "Come Little Children, I Take Thee Away." Very haunting song, I might add. And apparently Sarah Jessica Parker did actually sing that song. So she has a beautiful voice.
You can tell. You can tell. It really sounds like her. But she's like, "Come play in my garden of magic." I'll play your garden of magic.
You, Sarah Jessica Parker, anything.
No.
Now, for some reason, the spell doesn't work on Alison and Max. Like,
Yeah,
surely they
I
still fall
wondered
to that
that.
criteria.
Of children /
Yeah.
20-year-olds, like depending on what you consider a child in this, because it varies.
Yeah.
Also, I think the 90s equivalent is happening like the Power Rangers movie as well. People walking to their doom slowly is like the big blue light beam of the 90s.
Yeah.
No, we just get people to walk slowly to their doom. Yeah, that'll do.
Like zombies. Also, at this point, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Why are the children still in their Halloween outfits trick or treating? Are all the irresponsible parents still at that party dancing?
Well, yeah, because you cut back to them and they are. They're all the parents.
Yeah.
The kids just doing the fuck they want, which is eating candy and dressing up in costumes.
And stealing brooms.
That's a booze cupboard.
I would.
Yeah.
At this point, Alison explains what we already know, that the sisters only have until dawn. It's like, how did you know that? Like, Binks didn't tell you this. I was like, so I don't know how.
Did. Well, Binks told them.
Yeah, but then Binks also
they've only got till dawn.
Go on.
They've only got till dawn. And by the way, stop fucking with the book. I'll listen to half of you, Binks.
Oh, that's a t-shirt. Stop fucking with the book.
Stop fucking with the book.
And then the sisters are making the potion again, and then Danny calls Winnie ugly, and she's told that she'll die first. At which point, yeah, as you mentioned, all the children are making their way to the house. And then Max and Alison arrive, and they fool the sisters that it's dawn by just putting some tinted some paper over the lights and flash the car lights and flashing it through the window. And the sisters like, ah, and then fall down. Again, this goes back to what you were saying earlier about being powerful and, dangerous to being really fucking stupid. So surely they would have felt nothing as that light was shining on them. But yeah. And Binks is in a bag over some fire going, let me out! Let me out! And stop fucking with that book! And then...
That's one way he's clearly not tried to off himself during his Groundhog Day period.
What, being burnt in a bag?
Yeah.
Oh, horrible way.
That'd be my first choice.
Well, yeah, it's a peaceful way to go. And then...
yeah.
Max rescues Danny and Binks, and they escape, and then they knock over the potion. But so the witches realise they've only got enough potion for one child, but then because Danny called Winnie ugly, she's like, no, I want to get her, even though there's about 1,000 children walking towards the house, and they've got the bullies in the cage. Oh yeah, and also just before Max leaves, he steals his shoes back from Ice. I was like, as you should.
He leaves them to die, as I would have. I would have left them to die. They had it coming.
There are a couple of shitbags. Yep. And then they are trying to get away in their car, and then the witches are flying over. Now, this bit's weird. Like, Bette Midler says to him, like, pull over, can I see your driving license? I was like, yeah, it's funny, but how did she know that terminology? You're not telling me in 1 year, in one night, she's learned all modern day terminology. But yeah. Oh, then what happens? Then don't they crash or something? And then they end up back in the cemetery.
It gets a bit messy at this point in the film. It clearly didn't know how to end, so it was just sort of. It is generally a bit messy all the way through. Like it's loose scenes hung together around a bit of a bare bones plot.
Oh no, that's it. Basically, Binks tells them our only chance now is just to wait out until dawn, even though he didn't say that earlier on. So they go back to the cemetery because the witches can't get them there, even though they could just keep flying above and swatting at them. At which case, we then meet Billy, who's been disappeared for quite a amount of time now. And for no reason at all, he decides to turn good. So he grabs hold of a knife that suddenly Max has, even though we didn't see Max with that knife earlier, cuts all of his stitches open, and then starts hurling a lot of abuse at Bette Midler. I was like, but
I always assumed
why?
he was meant to be good all the way through.
But
He just misunderstood because why would he be doing what she asked him to do?
I never understood. Yeah, she killed him, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But now he can talk, and then Max is like, no, don't worry, he's a good zombie. And then they put Danny in a grave and put salt around it so she'll be safe. But then because the witches knock off Billy's head, she decides to get out to help him. Like, oh, for Christ's sake.
Stay in the grave.
And one job, just stay in the grave.
They just stand still. It's you they're trying to kill, you mug.
Yeah. So then Winnie grabs hold of Danny and trying to make her drink the potion. She drops the potion. Max grabs it and they're trying to, make a deal with each other. So Max is like, right, fuck it. Drinks the potion, says, right, you have to let her go now because the potion's in me.
She doesn't. She could have just thrown her and dashed her head against the rock. So I don't know why she was quite so reasonable about the whole thing.
That's true. And then poor Binks gets thrown against a rock. I was like, oh no. I was like, yeah, he's immortal. He's fine. Don't worry. And then Winnie, by this time, is desperately trying to drain the soul from Max. But then the sun rises and then she turns to stone. Sarah Jessica Parker doesn't turn to stone. Kathy and Jimmy doesn't turn to stone.
So I think she turns to stone because her feet touch the consecrated ground.
That
is what I think happens. It's not clear, but I think her feet touch the ground. She turns to stone. Then the other two explode. Then she explodes.
Okay, fine. Yeah, because that's it. She falls off the broom and falls down and crawls over to him. Yeah, okay.
I think that's why. Yeah, I think that's why.
Yeah. And then, they've been defeated. And then you see Binks go, fall over. Billy gets back into his grave to have a nice long sleep. And then this is when we realise Binks has died for real this time, which is kind of sad. And then we see Binks the boy arrive.
It's sad when he was a cat. And then he's that boy with the slappable face again. And I don't really care.
I felt this bit quite sad. Then we get a whole ET moment. He goes, I'll always be with you, Daddy, and all that. And then suddenly we get Emily turns up for some reason.
Strong vibes there, kissing a small 8-year-old girl on the cheek.
Yes, true.
What are we playing at?
Tick. And then Emily arrives, which makes no sense because her soul was never trapped. She just got killed. But yet she arrives. And then her and she goes, Thackeray Binks. Thackeray Binks. Why are you calling Thackeray Binks?
Thackeray Binks. She's been doing that for 300 years. Thackeray Binks. No. Round here, Thackeray Binks. I'll just walk around the office tomorrow doing that. Thackeray Binks.
That'd be really weird if someone goes, yes.
Yes, I'm Thackeray Binks. Ooh.
Oh, dear. So Thackeray Binks and Emily the ghost walk into heaven.
There's a bit where she's like, oh, I had to turn into a cat and I had to wait for 300 years. Well, I was really hoping to be like, oh, I remember now, you're an annoying little shit.
Yeah. No, he says, I had to wait for a virgin to light the candle. Why are you telling a little girl this?
What is, there's going to be follow-on questions that you're not prepared to answer, mate.
Yeah, I wonder how many parents after this. Some kids went to their parents' mum was a virgin.
Some of they had in the 90s. Don't worry about it. It's a big shop. It's like an HMV.
Yeah. And now it makes more sense because the note I put was the irresponsible parents leave their all-night party. But if that was a spell they had, that explains why they were partying till 7 a.m. Then we see the bullies are still in the cages. And they're singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat, I think. And then the big reveal at the end is that the book is still alive and you see its eye. And then suddenly we get, I put a spell on you, and then credits.
Yeah.
So there you go. That was Hocus Pocus. So let's start with back in the day. When you watched it at your friend's house on video, what did you think of it then?
I loved it then. I watched it all the time. I thought it was a great film. Can I tell you what I loved about it then? Probably not, apart from Sarah Jessica Parker. It's probably just because it was, nice and fun. Like, I've always been a big fan of Halloween. I've always liked spooky stuff, and I think it's quite good for a younger child to kind of get them into that sort of frame of mind. It adds a nice little. It's a bit like the Goonies and a bit like those kind of films that have this kind of sense of adventure and fun to them, whilst also kind of leaning into Halloween and being quite legitimately funny at points as well. So that's how about you?
Same. I mean, it's no secret. I love Halloween, and I really like Halloween films that are set on Halloween, not just like Michael Myers, but just fun films that are set on Halloween. And this is a really fun, family-friendly movie. It's a tight 90 minutes. It's funny. It's engaging. The characters aren't hateable. You can tell everyone's having a whale of a time doing this.
Max is quite smackable.
No. Apart from the bullies, who are really obnoxious, but they're supposed to be anyway. Like, no one really annoyed the piss out of me in this. So, it was always a fun film of mine when I was young, and I always used to like watching it at Halloween. Then I didn't watch it for a long, long time, and then I remember revisiting it about 5 years ago, and then revisited it last night. I watched it.
Yeah.
So Okay. So, what do you love or hate about it now?
So it's an interesting one. It was a fairly breezy and easy watch.
Mhm.
Um, do I get as much out of it now as a 38-year-old man as I did when I was 10? No. It certainly is. It's a younger skewing film. It definitely is. It's got weird sort of adult moments, but it feels like a lot of those jokes aren't really developed particularly. It feels a bit. And there are definitely moments where it just devolves into shrieking and um, a loose a loose grasp on what its plot is and what it's actually trying to achieve. Sometimes it just feels like a series of scenes of people mugging one after the other, which is fine, but it gets a bit tiring. Also, it definitely runs out of steam towards the end. Like
Yeah.
it definitely feels like it's just repeating beats that have happened 2 or 3 scenes earlier just to get to 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, but that said, it's still very funny. So the three witches are obviously having a ball. Kathy Najimy is comedic genius at points in this. I was howling with laughter. Um, the kid, Thora Birch is not a punchable child actor. Everybody else is relatively inoffensive. It's very 90s. It could be any number of 90s films. Have scenes that you kind of intermingle with this and like the bit of kind of the opening 20 minutes of Jumanji and stick that in there and you wouldn't notice anything changed. Um, but yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun easy watch. I certainly would recommend it to people with kids, right? If you've got a kid that you think might be into Halloween stuff or like to be into Halloween stuff when they're like 8 or 9, this is definitely a good way to kind of. I mean, when I was 8 or 9, I was probably watching Nightmare on Elm Street, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, but there's still room for this as well, I think. And no, how about you?
I mean, there's very little I hate about this film. Like, I had, pen and paper ready to write down what I hated about it, and at that point, I think I put the pen and paper down. I was like, oh, okay, I'm just really, really enjoying this. I mean, the Nancy stuff is a bit unsettling, but I don't think they were going in that direction. It was just unintentional, but it's just a bit unsettling in parts. But apart from that, it is just a very fun film. The songs are catchy. It's fun. You know, it's a breeze to watch. It's not boring at any point, and yeah,
No,
I
it's not
love
boring.
Halloween. It's for me, it's just a very, very fun film. So yeah, I
I
had a
mean, it was
ball watching it.
very critically badly received at the time, and I've kind of read some of the reviews. I've looked at some of the stuff from like Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel and things they said about it, which I don't agree with.
No, I
I
don't.
think they're hard. Like, I mean, is it out of if you're doing a 5-star rating, is it any more than a three? Absolutely not.
No, it's a
It's
three out of
just
five film.
it's a
Yeah,
3 out of 5. Fine, passes the time quite nicely. Will I come back to it every year for Halloween? No,
I would.
but well, yeah, but would I happily watch it again at some point in the future? Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah,
Um, it's one of those films. Like it's achieved cult status. I think because people have a legitimate love for it. It doesn't mean it's the best film in the world, but you can see why people like it. You can see what it has to recommend it.
absolutely.
Um, if you don't have too much, if you're not too demanding of it, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I don't understand the hate it gets. Like the people who hate it, but the people who love it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I err on the side of loving it rather than hating it. Okay, right. So I don't think we've talked about it too much going through, but it's time for Smith trivia. What do you got
Bit
for
of
us, Smith?
trivia. What have I got? Well, not much. I mean, we talk about bits and bobs here and there. Bit of casting. So the original person, you probably know this, who was offered the role of Max, was Leonardo DiCaprio, but he
And
was
I can
too
see that.
busy. Yep, I can see that. I can see Leo at the time. I could see him kind of. It's coming off of Critters. What,
Three.
3?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Critters. Good lord. Um,
Awful.
but he was busy with What's Eating Gilbert Grape, so he couldn't take it. Also, Mary Sanderson, Kathy Najimy's character, was originally offered to Rosie O'Donnell,
Yep.
which I can't see.
No, and that was the point I was going to make earlier, and then I stopped myself. But apparently, she didn't
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to do it because she didn't like the idea of killing children in a film. I was like, which is fair.
Which is, well, I don't know. You're not really killing them. If you're that confused about what you're doing in a film, then maybe don't be an actor.
That's true.
Um, apparently, a lot of the curses that Bette Midler uses during the film are real old time curses. She had books of old curses that she carried around with her on set, so that when she was insulting people, she had something that was era appropriate. So a
That's
lot of them weren't
amazing.
scripted. A lot of them were her ad libs because she really sort of lent into it and really loved the role. I mean, she said, as I said earlier, kind of some of the most fun she's ever had, which you can see. I mean, she's really enjoying herself. It's a weird thing with Bette Midler because she was huge when we were younger,
Yeah.
and I could not name beyond this and maybe Beaches, was directed by Gary Marshall. Another film that she's been in. Like, I can't. Like, she hasn't done anything well apart from I thought she had. Well, actually, I looked. I thought she hadn't done anything prior to Hocus Pocus 2 for ages, but she's done lots of voice work and bits and bobs here and there. But she was huge in the 90s. Like she was like really like super old Hollywood famous.
But then she's
But
a singer as well, so there was a lot of that. Same a lot
yeah,
Barbara
there's a lot of that.
Streisand.
Yeah, well, yeah, same thing. I
Yeah.
think same thing. So other things, Pixar, and I actually know I'm not. I haven't looked into this enough to know what they did, but Pixar are in the credits.
Mhm.
So seeing as it's an early Disney, I would assume it's somewhere around the early effects work for Pixar. Writer of this was a guy called Mick Garris. Are you familiar with Mick Garris?
No.
So Mick Garris created the TV series Masters of Horror
Mhm.
and has been heavily involved in horror films for years and years and years around this. So it's kind of like a weird little departure for him. He also wrote a lot of so Michael Jackson's Ghosts. He was behind.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I remember that.
yeah. He originally had the script written in 1984, and it was under the working title of Halloween House, and was apparently a hell of a lot darker, and it involved much more kid murder, and it was a
Oh.
direct sort of horror film. But when Disney got involved, it lightened up a bit and became the sort of horror comedy that it became. Talking of Disney, this came out obviously in 1993, same year as many other Disney films that were in the charts, and it did worse than all of them. On a budget of 28 million, it grossed, and it depends what you look at here. The number I've got is 47.7 globally.
Yep.
But if you consider that a film needs to make double what it cost in order to make its money back, it was a flop at the time. Hated critically, completely flopped. A similar film that year actually that came out same year and did exactly the same thing was The Muppet Christmas Carol.
Fantastic film.
Yeah, which overall this grossed slightly more than the lifetime gross at the cinema of Muppets Christmas Carol.
Wow.
However, two things have helped Hocus Pocus as years have gone by. One, Halloween video sales.
Yes.
It got a massive cult following and started to pick up a hell of a lot of interest from people year on year, to the point where it was bringing in roughly about $1 million of sales per year in video rentals and video purchases. It got re-released in 2020 during the pandemic and finished second at the box office behind only Tenet.
That's amazing.
And when there was not much for people to go and see, it probably made about 5 or 6 million, which kind of bumped up its overall gross, which then led them to make the sequel. Similarly, I was at Disney. I saw this recently. They have their Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party every year, which is now led by people dressed as the Sanderson sisters. So they lean into this film at Disney, and they've got a huge following. They theme a lot of it around Hocus Pocus. So you can see it's gone from 1993 flop to beloved cult classic with latter sequel and a third one coming.
Yeah, I heard that too.
I don't know why. I haven't seen the second one. I'm not particularly interested. But yeah, that's all of the Smith trivia that I have.
I've actually got a Stew trivia because I was hoping you'd mention this, but you didn't. So, you know that show, Who Do You Think You Are? I thought we only had that in the UK. Apparently, we got it in USA.
Yes, I did read this.
So, Sarah Jessica Parker was on Who Do You Think You Are? And apparently, they traced back to her ancestors. One of her ancestors was accused of being a witch and was condemned in Salem. And I'm like, that is amazing. Foreshadowing.
I didn't read about this. Yeah, she didn't die. She escaped with her life. It never made it to trial. So I think it was relatively towards the end of the Salem witch trials. One more bit that I forgot to mention. Doug Jones, Creature Feature Man, the bit where he cuts open his mouth and the moths fly out, those are real moths.
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah,
brave man. Brave man.
Well, they had a thing put so they couldn't go down his throat. But you know, that'd be a minimum that I'd want to have moths in my mouth.
And a lot of money. Cool. All right. So the final verdict, does it hold up?
Yeah. Why not?
Absolutely. It absolutely holds up. Wow, that's another time when we both agreed on the film. Flight the Navigator was the last time we both agreed. So yeah, excellent. Right then, Smith, it is now time for your nomination. What is the next episode's nomination going to be?
Oh, well, Stu, for you, the day that I told you what the next nomination was going to be was the most important day of your life. For me, it was a Tuesday.
Yes!
And we will be reviewing Street Fighter the movie.
Fantastic. I was hoping you'd pick that. Great. That's 1994, right?
Yep. No,
right.
Later than that, maybe.
Maybe 95. Maybe 95. Excellent.
We'll find out next week.
Wonderful.
Next
that
month, whatever it is.
That was on my list to nominate at some stage, but you beat me to it. So wonderful. So next time we meet, we shall be discussing that old classic Street Fighter. Cool. So the loosest possible term.
I loved it when I first saw it.
Well, let's save that for next episode. Cool. So last bit of housekeeping before we get out of here, just going to plug our socials. So you can reach us on email at itdoesn'tholduppodcast@gmail.com. We're on Instagram at itdoesn'tholduppodcast. We're on Twitter, or X as it's now known, at doesn'tholduppod. We're on YouTube at It Doesn't Hold Up Podcast, and we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other good places you listen to podcasts. And remember, please give us a good review on all our podcast platforms. And remember, we will welcome all suggestions for things for us to cover. So yeah, that was Hocus Pocus, and I had a lot of fun discussing that. It was a joy to go back and watch it. Is there anything final you'd like to say on Hocus Pocus, Smith?
No, I've said all I need to say about Hocus Pocus.
I think I have too. But the last thing I want to say to all of you before we get out of here and we regroup for Street Fighter is Happy Halloween!